Caliber here. Let's get right into it. Sonic 1 is seen as one of the most defining and important games of the early 90s, and possibly ever. Many of the levels had concepts and gimmicks not seen before, and it was truly a breath of fresh air for the gaming industry. But do these levels hold up well today? Did they age well? Well, let's find out. The most rehashed and revisited level in Sonic history. Green Hill Zone is a lot of fast-paced fun, with bright colors all over the place. The flowers and trees are full of life, the environment is active, and the level is inviting, simple, and easy for anyone to get into. Everything is bouncy and interactive, as there's a ton to do and a lot to play around with. Like I've said about Sonic 2's Emerald Hill, which is heavily based on this zone, Green Hill is what I like to call the Trojan horse, being introduced to something so beautiful and the next events being less than satisfactory. But I'm getting ahead of myself. There's a reason why Green Hill Zone is one of, if not the most beloved level in the Sonic series, as it feels like a playground and like there's never a shortage to how much fun the exploration in this level is. You really get to experiment with the game's controls, go as fast or as slow as you want, and though there is some platforming, it's not the main concern of the level. It's unique all around, the enemies are easy to deal with, and the zone feels homey and familiar even if you've never played it. I don't think I'd change much about Green Hill Zone other than it being more interactive. It doesn't feel like too much is going on when you speed through the levels, so maybe some added obstacles or interactables could do it some good. Even so, this will be the most fun you'll have throughout the game, as the zones that come after aren't exactly hard hitters. All the joy I had was instantly sucked away. Okay, that might have been a tad dramatic, but I can explain. Marble Zone always felt so slow to play, with its many platforming sections over hazardous lava. It's a pretty difficult level considering it's right after Green Hill, so it's like dashing through an amusement park and getting hit in the face by a metal fence. This zone isn't that bad on the eyes, with as many purples really popping amongst the lava and flames shooting from the walls. I think the most frustrating thing about this level is how the game halts you and forces you to go at its intended pace rather than at your own, so it can feel like a real killjoy. The one enemy native to this level is annoying as hell, especially in tight corridors, and though I like the dropping spike ceilings, it's also something the game puts in your way to make you go slower. Marble Zone could benefit from less focus on platforming, and maybe have a bit more free space, as everything feels too cramped for the player to feel comfortable. All in all, it's not a bad zone, as I can get through it with little to no issues, but it makes you yearn for something more. Spinguard really reminds me of the levels from Sonic CD, and no, that's not a compliment. Again, we revisit the color purple in the background, but the rest of the level is colored in greens and browns. It looks simple yet striking. Even so, the level's design leaves much to be desired. Sometimes it feels like obstacles are placed at random and without purpose, and it causes an obstruction to the flow of gameplay. Much like the problem with Marble Zone, the level feels a bit suffocating, and even though there are some sections where you're speeding through the level, you're likely to get hit by moving blocks that you'll have to traverse through slowly, or something else that makes you pause and have to do something else entirely. Of course, the game wouldn't be fun just racing through it with no obstacles, so I can understand the devs wanting to add more challenge or anything to make the game seem special, but I feel like it doesn't quite work here. There are word springs and other obstacles all over the level, making for some awkward or slightly annoying gameplay. The level is 30% speeding through, 60% platforming and waiting, and 10% useless obstacles, so while more entertaining than Marble, it's a bit lacking. Less obstacles and waiting around, and maybe more consistency on the speeding sections will make the level better. I still like the act a decent amount though, 10 to 10 for the music. I have beef with this level. If you watch my Sonic 2 level videos, you'd know how much I hate Metropolis Zone, but this level takes the cake for my most hated Sonic level ever. It's long, slow, dangerous, and there's water. I've never seen a better setup for a disaster. Labyrinth Zone is another level that doesn't believe in the player going fast, but while the other levels weren't terrible, this one is. There are too many hazards existing in this level and not enough fun. Water existing in any Sonic game means there's a risk of drowning, and while you don't typically worry too much about it, in Labyrinth Zone it's all you're thinking about, constantly. The level might be more bearable if the water sections, which is about 95% of the level, weren't so slow, but they are. The enemies are also sometimes hard to deal with some popping out of nowhere or being underneath a little ceiling with spikes surrounding it until you come close enough for it to slowly throw their projectiles at you. There are spirits that poke in and out of walls, statues that shoot projectiles constantly, and both these things would be fine if not for the extremely slow water sections. There are even platforms that send you up into spikes, which will be an instant kill. I genuinely think the devs were sadistic as hell for putting this in a kid's game. I do like how the level looks with this almost ancient look, and the music isn't half bad either. I still think it's an awful zone, and could use so many tweaks in order to even be considered decent. Making the water traversal not so painful will be a start, as well as adding a little less water. I get it's a water level, but come on, we really need some kind of solid ground. Or ramps. Literally anything else. But yeah, I hold a pretty popular opinion about this zone. Hear me out. I'm not that big of a fan of Starlight Zone. I definitely don't hate it, but it kinda just feels like a nothing burger, as the only thing it has going for it is that it's a breath of fresh air after the hell Labyrinth Zone puts you through. I get why some people like it, with many loops, ramps, and the ability to speed through. It's some good fun where you don't have to worry about drowning or getting crushed, but good god does the level overdo it with the bottomless pits. You'd think Dimps had a hand in developing this level with how many there are. A lot of the time, you won't be able to see underneath the platform you're on, so there's quite a few leaps of faith. I also just think this level is quite boring, even down to how it looks. There's a lot of black and green, and while I love these colors, you really can't even tell where you're supposed to be. Despite this, Starlight Zone does what I've been wanting the game to do up until this point, which gives me some speed and room to breathe. The platforming sections are difficult, and though there aren't many enemies, the level feels fine enough without them, maybe a little empty. Starlight Zone needs a bit more personality, like a completely different level design with unique gimmicks, otherwise I think it's alright. Scrap Brain is pretty tough. For it being the final level in Sonic 1, it really doesn't pull any punches. Moving platforms that spin 360 degrees over bottomless pits, giant moving buzzsaws, and more hazards are plentiful in this level. Enemies are as aggressive as Sonic 1 enemies can be, and though it feels like you're going fast, you're only really doing that to avoid getting hit a million times. Being precise in your jumps is everything in this level, as Scrap Brain does not hesitate to drop you into the abyss. It's quite tense, and as a kid, this level made me want to cry. Especially when you reach Act 3, since it's just a harder, worse version of all the acts in Labyrinth Zone. It's what I like to call Labyrinth Zone Act 4. Air bubbles are scarce, the level design can be confusing, and it's scary, only narrowly making it to fresh air before you drown. I feel like the devs absolutely knew Labyrinth Zone will be universally hated amongst players. I know Scrap Brain is supposed to be tough, but it really just feels like you're beaten to a pulp by the time you get to the final boss. This zone could use a lot of changes, the most major one being no Labyrinth Zone. I think we suffered enough, don't you? And I really wish Scrap Brain felt more like a level and not like a giant obstacle filled to the brim with hazard after hazard. More room to traverse quickly, and more emphasis on being able to predict or react to enemies rather than just taking hits. Really makes you feel like you're just a pincushion. It really accomplishes being a hard final level that makes kids cry though. Sonic 1's flaws have been widely discussed for years, so my opinions might not be too unique or even that interesting, but I'll say right now that I really love this stupid game. Is it the best classic Sonic game? Definitely not. Has it aged well? Not exactly. But it's the start of my favorite cute blue moron and his equally cute friends. It's the beginning of my lifelong interest. It's not perfect and that's okay. Anyway, what do you think? Do you have some different opinions about the game? Let me know in the comments. I'm Cat Lover, it's been real, peace.